Good morning, Becky. Good
Morning,
morning,
Sean.
Cleo.
Good morning, everybody. How exciting. Compassion Speak is expanding to bring in guests. We have our very special guest today, Beckie Wagner, super friend, super amazing energy worker. She's been a leader of pagan ceremony for 30 years, 20
Something
years.
like that. We don't need to talk about particulars. A long
You
time.
need to refresh your resume, Beckie.
That's what they tell me. Yeah.
All right. So today's topic is when we shut down our joy and why we do it and how we can avoid doing it. Do we feel we don't deserve it? Do we feel like it's too good to be true? What are the reasons that we close down or sometimes don't even know it? Sometimes all of a sudden we have images flashing in our head, literally, of disasters. When, for example, this is Brene Brown's example that she's standing over her children, looking at her children asleep in their beds, and she suddenly has images in her head of them being in a car accident. Instead of, she's suddenly just about to be overwhelmed with this joy and love, and suddenly that's all she can see is there's going to be a car accident. So the police are going to call me. Your children have been in a car accident. And when she interviewed people, she found that 80% of people said that this happened to them, that they had this experience, exactly that experience. And when she gives a lecture and asks people to raise their hands to say who did this today or yesterday, 20% of the people raise their hands. So it's an epidemic.
I believe it.
It's an epidemic. It's not just you. It's not just me. It's an epidemic.
And it's also the most dangerous thing that I do in life.
Ooh. Expand upon that.
Well, I'm approaching 1,000,000 miles driven. And so there's lots of opportunities to make good decisions and poor decisions. And so I think that for me, when I have an impulse of information that I need to pay attention to, it may first come up as self-protection. And then to sit in that and look at what I can do to add to my protection, add to my wellness, add to my joy, and start adding the layers of that experience so that I'm well supported.
So I think it helps to have a little bit of backstory. So Sean is driving a vehicle which is now on its 4th transmission, I believe. And so every 100,000 miles, it's suddenly just the
No,
whole
every
transmission.
25,000 miles.
Every 25,000 miles, the whole transmission lands on the highway. And Sean has his vehicle in the shop for a month or more. And his vehicle is his work. He travels all over the United States and he needs his vehicle to live out of and to work from every day. And so this is a major, major setback when it happens. It's sort of like if you went to work one day and they said, you're laid off. We don't know when you're coming back. And we're taking your car and we're taking your apartment. So for Sean, it is a serious terror or could be, like, I don't know what I'm projecting here. So imagine being in that situation. And then knowing that every time you drive this car, you're getting closer, this van, you're getting closer to that time when the transmission is just going to fall on the road, no matter how slow you've driven or how careful or kind you've been.
Well,
this is a perfect example of trying to appreciate like this beautiful thing, right? This is your livelihood. This is this beautiful vehicle. You spent a long time working to get this vehicle, and it's really a vital part of your work in order to manifest joy and good working conditions and a great day. Here you are in this thing that has sort of a bit of a cloud over it, this is a great example of how do you keep it in the positive?
Well, I
Right.
was going to ask what defines joy in that
Mhm.
example. Where is the joy?
The joy is that I get to travel around the country and enjoy all the wonderful exchanges, interactions. I had one earlier this week that was particularly special. Um, but in adding those layers, um, I think that what breaks my joy is not feeling safe. And I can add layers of ways that I need to protect myself in order to feel safe. Or I can continue creating what's not making me feel safe. And if I think about all the potential uh, times that I could get into an accident, um, then it's going to make me a less aware and cautious and safe driver because I'm focusing on the very thing that I'm not wanting to have. And I think that what I focus on persists. And so if I focus on joy, if I focus on happiness, if I um, if I look for ways that I feel supported, and um, then I'll find that too.
I think Becky brings up a good point, and I think it's important from my perspective to recognize that joy is kind of natural. That joy, when we're connected to other people, when we're connected to the beauty of our life, the truth of our life, how rich and amazing it is, that joy is natural. And for us to shut it down is really rejecting the gifts that are there for us every day.
Hmm.
What do you think, Becky?
I don't know. There were times that I didn't have in my life, I didn't have a clue what joy was.
Hmm.
I mean, there are times in people's lives where there's so much fear and so much sadness and so much not joy that it's hard to know what joy really is. So I'm not sure that it's natural. Maybe when we're born and when we're kids, we have a taste of joy, but we forget. We forget in the growing up, and we forget in the the experience with our parents, and our parents trying to teach us what it's like to live in the real world. And at least my experience has been that I've had to unlearn some of the things that I was taught as a kid to experience joy as an adult,
Hmm.
because I'm having to remember what it was like to be a kid as an adult. Does that make sense? I mean, but that's kind of the way it is, because maybe our souls remember, but so many of us are out of touch with our souls.
So, Becky, do you feel like what we're talking about is actually learning how to accept our connection so that we can remember how to have joy? Because we're actually encouraged in our society to be someone who does not accept or trust that joy is the natural state of
Yeah,
what we can experience.
I think that first of all, we are taught to not trust, not trust our hearts. we're taught
Hmm.
we're we're taught to listen to our mind and not our heart. we are actively taught that as kids.
Mhm.
And so part of my spiritual journey has been to have to turn this off and turn this on and listen to the heart
Uh,
and balance that.
yeah. Sandra's, um, welcome, Sandra. She's saying that as an adult, peace and joy mingle. So part of that joy for her is in feeling that peace that comes with, that accompanies it.
Mhm. I think this is a great observation because otherwise it can kind of feel judgmental to be walking around having this thinking that how come I'm not in joy, you know? So I think that that's a great observation, Becky, to think, yeah, this is a process that we learn over the course of our whole
Mm.
lives, and that it really is kind of parenting, natural parenting that hands to our kids the fears that we were taught and that we learned over our lifetimes. And how can we do better? How can we rediscover what joy is and also offer that to our kids?
I think it's trusting. I think we have to learn to trust
Mm.
ourselves and that abundant love that comes bubbling up, from our heart when we allow it to. I remember the feeling of opening, having an open heart after having it be closed down for so long. And that was like liberating. Oh my gosh, it was wonderful. Um, and yet there's something really scary about that too.
Mm.
I mean, you talk about vulnerability. Wow.
I think too that joy is not happiness. I think
Exactly.
we need to clarify that it feels more like a vehicle. And what happens when I have that sense of connection with God or the universe, that there's um, this place of belonging, that everything is okay.
Mhm.
And so when I am feeling okay, when I am safe, I have that permission to see it around me, see it already in action.
Mhm.
I have a really good example just this week. I'm going through a huge transition right now with my life. Of moving part time into a community. And it's a community that I'm not very familiar with, but it's a spiritual community, and it's a decision that I made I wanted to do, and I was accepted. And I should be celebrating, and I should be really joyful about that. And what I find myself feeling is fearful and calling into doubt my original decision, and just thinking, oh, what did you get yourself into? And all of those kinds of things, all of that stuff going on in my head. And yeah. Yeah, I just really had to sit with all of that doubt and fear and just let it drip away.
Can you
Um,
talk more about being in the heart?
So what's it like to be in the heart now, knowing that tomorrow you're going to be living in a commune with a bunch of people that you don't know?
Say what?
And it's a beautiful, spiritual, amazing place with beautiful, spiritual, amazing people, but it means packing your bags and getting in the car and going to live with a bunch of people that you haven't even met yet.
I've met some of them, but not everybody, and I don't have a clue what the schedule is. And I mean, there's all kinds of basic stuff. At least I know what my room looks like, and I know what the house looks like. I know some things, but there's all kinds of pretty basic stuff that you don't know. And all of that can be pretty unsettling, um, physically and emotionally. Um, but I think First of all, the fear was far worse than than my realization of what was going on and just letting it go. Um, I slept so much better last night than I did the night before. Oh my goodness. It was kind of a surrender almost. And I don't use that word very often. I'm the big, strong, liberating woman right here, right? No. It just is okay. I really had to have this talk with my head and say, look, the way this came to you, the way it rolled out, the conversations you had, the way your references went, everything about this points in the direction of a good experience, something that fits with who you are and the direction that you're going. And you just need to trust that. And that was the conversation I had to have. And once I slept on it and really just kind of released it and said, no, I'm not going there. I got up this morning and I seriously started thinking about, okay, what am I going to take with me today when I go? And that's kind of the first time I was really able to wrap my head around it. Because before then I wasn't sure I was really going to go. I was thinking things like, no, I'm not going to do this.
This is a great description of doing exactly what we're talking about, right? Of choking, right? Everything is great and you know it. And
Yep.
you could be, when I talked to you last week, you were bubbly.
Yeah.
Like you were giggly and bubbly and excited and a little bit breathless with the joy of the excitement of what was coming. And then your little amygdala said, "Oh no, we better bring some fear in here. Shut this down. You
Exactly.
can't have all that joy. How dare you?"
So
And I think,
surrender brings you back into joy.
I'm sorry?
Surrendering that fear,
Yes.
surrendering all of the details involved with this next step helps
Exactly.
you get back to or
Yes.
realign with that joy.
It's the trusting, it's the trusting the heart to know. It was letting go of it. And I really consciously had to say, no, I am not doing that. And letting go of it and saying, okay, this is the way it's going to be, and we're doing this. And then this warm place happens. This warm place. That's how I know is the warmth, and it's a physical sensation. Almost, it's a warmth for me.
And where do you feel that warmth?
Oh, in around my heart, and it's almost a physical sensation of openness too. And when I'm caught up in all of that fear, there's a constriction. There's a constriction in my chest. My throat gets tight. My shoulders are tight. Just all kinds of stuff. I don't think clearly. Um, I forget things more. All kinds of stuff goes on.
This is another great description of what happens when, my son has an online program that he watches, which is about fear, and they call it the amygdala hijack. They say when you get the amygdala hijack, the part of your brain, the little reptile part of your brain that's geared totally towards fear, that's the experience, right?
Yep.
Those are all the physical sensations that go with us getting ready to fight, run, freeze.
Yep.
And then we can choose delight.
Yes.
And tell ourselves, this is like a roller coaster. I feel great. Isn't this yummy? I'm
You're at the
so
top of the hill
excited.
just before you're getting
Yeah.
ready to go down, and it
Right.
feels like it pauses, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then you are on the roller coaster down.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
a difference between anxiety and anticipation. We've talked about this before. And oftentimes it's found in the same part of our body. And so we can misconstrue something that's going to be exciting because it's a little bit filled with, you know, anxiety.
But we can also pick, right? We can
Mhm.
pick which way we want to interpret that and drive. Just like Becky's talking about, telling
Mhm.
herself this is using her willpower to say to her body, we're not going to the place of fear. We're going
Mhm.
to the adventure.
That's a good place to install a clutch. Helps me get from one gear to the next. There's a transmission theme to my year. So
Mm.
I love that. I love that. I wonder which gear I finally ended up in. I'll have to think about that.
Forward.
one of the things that I find fascinating, though, for me, joy is a continuous state that is available.
Mhm.
And when I step into it, there's this immersion that takes place. And it's almost like taking a deep breath of fresh air and the lightening of my burdens, and my thought process slows, and I can think clearer.
Mhm. Yeah, we have to allow time for that to happen. And see, joy is constantly there, but so is fear. The two of them kind of ride side by side. And so you have to really I'm still at a point where I have to make that conscious decision. Okay, is it going to be fear today or is it going to be joy?
Hmm.
And I have to decide. I have to choose and allow. Because for me, because I was so indoctrinated as a kid, and the mm, the experience of knowing that I can choose joy is so new. That experience of knowing that I can choose joy is so new that I have to make a conscious effort to do it.
Hmm.
Taking a deep breath certainly helps, but I have to remind myself that I can do that. I have to remind myself. And for me, part of being out in nature and under the trees and all of that helps me to remember that. Um,
I can certainly relate to that, Becky.
yeah.
What are some action steps that help you engage that joyfulness?
Oh, taking a deep breath, certainly. Being in quiet, meditation, trying to slow the mind, listening to music
Hmm.
sometimes, depending on the music. I was listening to some gorgeous classical music last night. Maybe that helped. I'm not sure. Um, Something else I was doing last night was filing. Oh my God. Maybe it's just mundane tasks that you don't have to think about very much. I'm not
That
sure.
is really interesting. That's a great observation. I love that. A lot of creatives talk about that, talk about having like a creative block and then spending a bunch of time filing or knitting
Yeah.
or walking, and that
Yes.
Cleaning
these
windows.
cleaning
Cleaning windows.
windows.
Exactly. Something
Sean
you
is
don't have to think about. Very
Sean is really lucky. I love his stories about like the things that he prays for, the people that he prays for, the families that he connects with when he's window washing. And there's a whole Buddhist element to what he does,
Hmm.
because there's this whole the Buddhist idea is that when we clean the mirror, or the window, that our mind is a mirror or a window, and that when we clean it, so that would be our fear, right? Blocking us from seeing the truth, and that the truth is naturally joy. And that's so cleaning the window or the mirror is this incredible gift. Sorry, you talk about it,
So
Sean.
how much of this joy is remembering? How much of it is
I think a
removing
lot of
the
it is for
blocks?
me. Yeah, I think a lot of it is in this interview process to become a part of this program that I'm moving into. They were asking me, what is it that I want to do for my contributing work to the community, because I have to do 16 hours a week of contributing work to be a part of this community. And I said, I want to be outdoors. And so they've got this long thing of raspberries that needs to be weeded. So part of my responsibility, and I'm not the only one, is going to be, helping to weed this raspberry patch. And I have this vision of me sitting on the ground pulling weeds, and every weed I pull, it's pulling out some of the fear that has been, planted in me.
That's beautiful. Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I just have that image because I think it's going to take that kind of awareness and intention. I think, and I really think that we have to have that kind of awareness, first of all, that it happened, and have the intention that we really want to make room. And that's kind of the way I view it. I'm making room for more joy. If I can pull out some of the fear that has been instilled in me, maybe not even on purpose, maybe because my parents didn't know any better, or they gave me the best they could. But just getting rid of some of that unneeded, unnecessary fear to be a more joyful person in the world.
I was thinking of that joy being maybe the soil that is fertile.
Yeah.
And when I'm pulling out the weeds of fear, then I have the opportunity for other things to grow from that.
You don't know this, Sean, but I'll tell you anyway. Oh my goodness. It's been last year, I guess. One of the things I did at Earth Day last year was to proclaim myself a fungus.
Right. I remember that.
I did. I wrote
a manifesto.
Yeah, kind of like, and because I was searching, how do I respond to the needs of the climate change that we're in, the desperate need to heal Mother Earth. How do I respond to that in a personal way? And I started looking around, and what I discovered was that fungus are the ones doing the real work, because fungus take everything that's dead and make something living out of it. And so I just decided I was going to be a fungus. And that's exactly what they do. They create new soil so we can grow new things in them.
You can also use a fungus for healing too, like
You can.
penicillin, right?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think that it's so important, what you're describing as this process that all of us can create for ourselves in any kind of situation, really. We can go to work. We may think that you have to go on Buddhist retreat for 6 months in order to have this experience. But I think it's so important for everyone to realize these are gifts that we can use anytime. These are practices we can use at the work job that we're frustrated with, where we can try to clean the mirror and see the truth. One of my great adages is optimism is actually the truth. The truth is actually good and beautiful and supportive. And when we dwell on the icky and the nasty, it's really our personal interpretation. It's, the pain of loss is really us becoming disconnected from the gifts of that loss.
That's
And that
beautiful.
when we see or recognize or care about or connect with the truth of the reason that we're unhappy, then we reclaim those gifts. Just like Beckie is going to go on massive long retreat in order to learn more about connecting with people and teach, really probably to teach mainly other people how to do exactly this, how to be present, recognize that everything is actually okay in this moment, no matter what fears are hovering over your head, whether they're realistic or whether they're crazy imagined things,
Yeah.
and how to weed.
Something else that comes to mind, we talked a little bit about surrender. And for me, that also brings to mind forgiveness, because sometimes self-judgment gets in the way of that joyfulness.
Give us a good example.
Well, oftentimes I ruminate and give myself lots of examples of how I'm not going to experience something. And I can spend that time adding all the reasons why I could be experiencing something. So for me, I have to remind myself by being aware of my triggers and sitting with them and exploring my needs. Because oftentimes I'm responding out of my habit of feeling bad. And so I walk down that road. There are other paths available if I take the time to consider and to explore. So I think for me, I really have to step back from the decision and allow myself to investigate further. They say that the road to heaven and hell begins with the same direction. It's HEO. Well, a shorter version would be hell. The longer version, which may require more investigation, can lead me into a more divine experience too.
That is a great point. That's a great point. I love that. That's beautiful. All right, we're running out of time, so we need to do the wrap up.
Well, first of all, I need to say that self-forgiveness is one of the hardest things to do, really, because we're hardest on ourselves before we are anybody else. And so I'm aware of that. I'm particularly aware of that regarding myself. So
yeah. Well, and maybe it helps to have others remind us that we can choose and that we can explore and that we can feel connected through their support and their embrace.
That's what I'm hoping that this community, one of the roles this community will take. I have never lived in intentional community, especially spiritually intentional community before. So I'm hoping that that's one of the roles that is there and available and that they're working on. I suspect that it is, but I don't know for sure. It's one of those unknowns, and it's the unknowns that cause the greatest fear.
I also think too that it's a lot closer than we can imagine it to be.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I can choose a longer route to get there. And the shorter route is available too.
You can use fourth gear instead of second.
Well, sometimes I get into trouble when I try to go from second to or fourth to second, right? That's
Yeah.
how my last transmission almost hit the pavement. I was driving 60 miles an hour, and then the van downshifts from 60 to, or from sixth gear to second gear, and it tore the transmission off the engine.
You're supposed to use brakes before you do that.
This is a really good
Right.
point here. This is a really good point. Number one, transitions, right? Transitions. That it's worth it to recognize that it takes time to go from one gear to another,
Yes.
but also to recognize the gear is neutral. That is when God is the vehicle,
Ah, I
right?
like that.
Neutral.
Yeah. Mhm.
Neutral.
You mean when you're just coasting?
You don't have to have it in fourth gear to get to your commune, my
Right.
beautiful friend. You don't have to do that.
You're just
Mhm.
Put
coasting.
it in neutral. Put it in neutral.
Yep.
Just pack. Just pack.
That's what I'm about this afternoon. So
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think it's very natural to be thinking of all the things that you can do to prepare yourself for something you haven't experienced before.
in any situation, absolutely. But not all that long ago, I I decided that I was going to take a road trip all by myself, and I did, and it was absolutely incredibly wonderful. So, past experience should tell me something.
Yeah. Bolster your confidence, right? That's
Exactly.
a great example. I love that. That's a great example. Remind yourself, right? We should be reminding ourselves, we did this before and it's great.
Yeah.
We're good at this. We got
Well,
this.
the other piece is that I'm never alone, and I keep forgetting that I'm never alone, and that I am deeply loved and cherished. So
And that brings me joy.
it does. It does indeed. It does indeed.
All right. Thank you both so much. This has been fabulous. I think this is a great addition to our series, and thank you so much, Beckie, for joining us. We're looking forward to
Yes,
doing
Betsy.
this more. Sean, thank you so much for joining us on your travels. Looking
My
forward to when
pleasure.
you get back to Denver and we can all actually see each other.
Well, that'll be
And yeah,
have a wonderful day, both of you.
you
And
too.
you. And congratulations.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
Congratulations on your big win. And I'm so excited to hear all about. I hope texting is still allowed in the commune and you can send me a message. This is
I'm
I'm
sure it
scared,
is.
Cleo. I can go, you're doing fine, Beckie. But I'm sure you won't need to. I'm sure you're going to be just
It'll
like
be
a
fine.
dolphin. You're going to be like a
Oh,
dolphin.
one more thought for everybody, that joyfulness can also sustain whatever emotion that you're feeling. It can help you get to where you're going and make it a stable foundation to build on.
Yeah, one blessing already. There's a cat that lives in the house that I'm going to be in. Her name is Precious, and she's already decided that I'm okay. So I'm really sweet. I'm really glad about that. So
Yeah, precious is good. That's
Yep.
good.
Yeah.
Well, from my heart to all of yours, thank you for making this a joyful occasion.
Yeah, thank you all. Take care.
Bye for now.
Bye.